Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Microscopic Reviews. I am your host JB and going under the microscope today is The Darkness 2. So before we begin part 1, let's have a look at the launch trailer.
I never asked for the darkness. It chose me. Gave me its power. But like everything else, it came with a price.
Jackie, this was not your fault.
And now, it's mine to control.
We've come for the darkness, Jackie. Give it to us!
You want it? Come and get it.
Okay then, so for part 1 of the review we will be looking at the facts. So, The Darkness 2 was made by developer Digital Extremes. Other titles you may know that have been developed by Digital Extremes include Unreal Tournament 2003 and Unreal Tournament 2004 for the PC, the PS3 port of Bioshock, the multiplayer component of Bioshock 2, the PC port of Homefront, and the up-and-coming Star Trek game for the Xbox 360, PS3 and PC, which is due out sometime this year. The Darkness 2 was published by 2K Games. Other titles you may know that have been published by 2K Games include Sid Meier's Civilization 4, Sid Meier's Pirates, Bioshock, Bioshock 2, and the up-and-coming Bioshock Infinite, which is due out sometime this year, Borderlands and its up-and-coming sequel Borderlands 2, which is also due out sometime this year, the very first Darkness game, which came out in 2007, and the Duke Nukem Forever game. The Darkness 2 is available for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and the PC. PC system requirements for the Darkness 2 are now on screen. Feel free to pause the video and have a quick look. They will also be available down in the description. So, now we move on to part 2, thoughts and opinions. Right, so this is The Darkness 2. It's developed by Digital Extremes and it's a sequel to the 2007 game The Darkness. The Darkness was developed by Starbreeze Studios, and both games are an adaptation of the comic The Darkness by Top Cow Productions. So Ben, what did you think of The Darkness?
I thought it had an amazing campaign. The graphics could have been a bit better because there was some points during...
Sorry, just to interrupt, I think the graphics actually quite suited the game well. I mean, it's a comic adaptation, it's meant to be over the top a bit, it's not meant to be like realistic. I like the graphics. I mean, it's... Sorry, again, it's a vast improvement on The Darkness, because at points in like the original game The Darkness, they'd be talking and their lips wouldn't move. And that was in cutscenes as well, and that's not something you look for in the 2007 game. I mean, Bioshock, that came out in 2007, graphics were mediocre, by today's standards anyway, but at the time they were quite really astounding. And it only came out, I think, a few months prior. And that's not, especially as Bioshock was published by the same company, 2K.
Yeah.
You expect something a little bit better than that.
Okay. Well, I like the graphics as it was, because the idea that they had for it was to like be a look like a graphic novel, which I think they succeeded in. But there were parts where it didn't quite work.
I did have a couple of frame rate issues from time to time. I mean, the cutscenes were pretty pristine, but especially when I was using the black hole feature, which is one of the really awesome, we'll get to that in a minute, one of the really awesome gameplay features. And when I'd use that occasionally, I'd get the odd spot, and not so much lag, I mean you can't really have lag unless it's yeah, but I get the odd drop of frame rate, but it became noticeable. Graphically wise, I'm very impressed by this game. What do you think of the sound?
I think the sound's amazing. I think they did a good job of making the sound incorporated into the game.
I really liked the voice acting, like especially the guy who played. I don't know who he is, unfortunately. I'll probably flash it up on screen on my hand.
Which character?
The Darkness.
Mike Patton.
There you go. But he's in like a band or something, isn't he?
Phantom S.
Yeah, and he's been in. He's voiced other characters as well in games as well.
He did the Darkness one.
Yeah, I know he did the Darkness one, but I know he's done other things. I don't know.
The executions.
Executions. I like the executions.
Yeah. You recharge for your abilities, ammo, health, and
a shield.
And a shield.
And a shield. I have to say though, I didn't really notice the recharge one actually recharge my swarm and ghost hunting abilities that much. I think it should have been an I think it gave you about a quarter of the way, but you don't really notice that. I think it should have given. I suppose if it given you all of it, that would have been a bit overpowered.
Yeah.
But it should have given you like half, a noticeable amount. Single player campaign is a wee bit easy.
On the hardest difficulty.
Yeah, on the hardest difficulty. Like if you've ever played, say, Call of Duty, for example, if you played the single player, it's sort of somewhere between hardened and veteran on Call of. But to be fair, in Call of Duty, you're just shooty, whereas in this, you're a god. Pretty much. So, I suppose you can forgive it on that aspect. They make you too powerful. But yeah, it did feel a tad too easy, which... I mean, it took me about 8 hours to complete. I think it took you like
7-ish.
6 or 7.
6 or 7.
So, good amount of time. I will say though, I managed to get all of the achievements in 2 days of playing.
Yeah, and then
that wasn't even me playing it all of those days. I was playing other things in between. So... achievements a little easy to get.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that takes away from the fact that the game's really good. I mean, I've got all the achievements, I've done everything. I could quite happily play that game again right now. Go through the entire single player on in easy mode or hard mode, whatever. Because I think the fact that the hard mode isn't too easy sort of gives it a little bit of replayability, because when you play it again for the story, you'll be more tempted to play it on the harder mode, and thus you'll be playing it for longer. I mean, despite the fact it only took me 8 hours total, I couldn't do that in one sitting. Co-op. What did you think of the co-op?
I really like co-op. The characters are just... You can play any character and feel like it's your favourite character, really. Yeah,
they're all really comfortable to use. I really like the weapons as well. I wish they had fleshed out the co-op campaign a bit more though. I mean, it felt a bit... It was short, and it felt... They intertwined it with the story well, but it felt a bit short.
What do you think of the replayability about the co-op campaign?
Now, that's... Yeah, I think part of what gave the campaign replayability is the story is really involving, and the abilities are really cool. But the co-op campaign, you can't finish it, you can't do the final level unless you have 4 players, because otherwise it's way too difficult to defeat that final enemy, that final boss. Won't go into details, but so unless you've got 4 people who are willing to go all the way through and play, doesn't have any replayability as far as the campaign. As for hit list, I like the unique hit list missions. I didn't like the fact that some of the hit list missions were actually campaign missions.
Yeah.
That gave the hit list very little... It gave me very little drive to actually replay hit list.
Yeah.
And I think after I've maxed out all the character trees, which shouldn't take more than a few sittings, I won't be touching the co-op again, other than for maybe like several months down the line just for a yeah, I think that's everything. So overall, good story, good graphics, good sound. There were a few frame rate issues and some replayability issues with the co-op, which sort of lets it down, and the characters weren't really fleshed out as they could have been in co-op. But yeah, so final score. What do you give it?
9.5 out of 10.
9.5. I'm going to give it 8.5. The reason I give it the 8.5 is basically because the co-op. The co-op is like half the game. Well, not half the game, but it's a substantial part of the game, and it was a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
So, that's an overall scoring of 9 out of 10 for The Darkness 2. I'd say this game is a must-buy for anyone who's a fan of maybe gorier games. Thank you very much for watching Microscopic Reviews. This has been The Darkness 2, and I have been your host, JB. Please tune in again. This is Darkness 2, it's by Digital Extremes, and...
And is,
No! No!